Good evening, HSM West. So glad you guys could join us this evening for our small groups. Believe it or not, guys, this is our last small group of the year. It's been a crazy year, an unpredictable year, but it's also been a year of immense depth in relationships and of growth. And all things considered, I'm thankful for what this year has been and the way that God has used it to shape lives. As a quick reminder, next Wednesday is our last HSM service of the semester. We'll be having our senior fiesta. We'd love it for you all to be there. If you could bring your friends, we'll have some sweet treats. We'll have a photo booth, and we'll get a chance to honor and hear from some of our graduating seniors. Today, we're going to finish up our influences series. And for the past 3 weeks, we've been talking about all the different types of influences that surround us. You and I are under constant influence from our friends, our culture, our social circles, our inputs. All of these things have an effect on the thoughts we think, the things we do, the habits we form, the character we develop, and ultimately our destiny. And influences in and of themselves, I want to reiterate this, right? That they aren't a bad thing or a good thing, right? They're simply a reality. They're a part of the way that God's designed our lives. And to that end, God is fully aware of the difficulties that you and I face navigating the tension of different influences. So our hope throughout this series is to be giving you guys some biblical principles, some biblical texts, some biblical ideas that you can use to walk through that struggle. Now, we started by talking about spiritual influence and the struggle we face between conformity and transformity, right? God should be the ultimate and primary influence in all of our life's decisions. We then talked about social influence and how important it is for us to be forming spiritual friendships. We also talked about environmental influence, the things we do, the environment we surround ourselves with, how that affects us, right? Now, rather than thinking about external factors that are influencing you, this week, I want us to take some time to think about who you are influencing. Because as much as you're being influenced by the people around you, you in turn, whether you know it or not, are influencing people in your life. Whether or not you know it, your life is having a direct effect on the actions, the opinions, and the decisions of others. So take a minute with me. I want you to think about what we would call your circle of influence, okay? And your circle of influence is really just all the things in your life that you have the capacity to influence, that you can change and that you can affect, right? So what are the things in your life that you have the power to influence? What are some of the daily decisions that you get to make for yourself that have you can have an impact on their outcome? Who are some of the people that you have direct influence over, right? That's your circle of influence, because there's plenty of things in this life that you and I can affect, okay? But there's also a lot of things in this life that we can't affect. We can't change who our parents are. We can't change our family, where we were born, our ethnicity. We can't change the weather or the economy or the price of gas or the spread of a global pandemic, right? I'd like to think that I can change a lot of those things, but when you sit down to make a list, you pretty quickly realize that there's a lot more things you can't change than you can change. And so once you've really thought through all the things in your life that you can change and all the things in your life that you can't change, that should give you a more clear picture of your circle of influence. Now, God in His sovereignty has given you the ability to actually have an effect on the world around you. You have the capacity to be influential in multiple different ways. So the next question for us to ask then is, how am I using my influence? You might be using your influence to make yourself more powerful or more comfortable, or to help yourself get ahead, or to look better than the other people around you. On the other hand, you might be using your influence to glorify God, or to help those around you. Some of you might have never thought at all about how you're using your influence, and that's okay too. But as we go through today's passage, I want you to remember 3 things. Number 1, you are chosen by God to be holy. This gives clear vision to who you are and who you were made to be. Your identity as a follower of Christ is separate. It's unique. It's set apart from the rest of the world, and it's called to be different for the sake of Jesus. Number 2, you are called to abstain from the flesh. God knows that you're going to experience some conflicting desires from within. Like we've already talked about, there's this tension to conform or to transform, and you're going to have to fight each and every day to choose his desires above your own desires. Number 3, you are commissioned to act honorably. God knows that the people around you are going to constantly be watching to see what you do. And because of that, we hold our actions to a high standard. Christians should act in such a way that causes other people to see Christ in us and give him glory. Guys, God has an intentional purpose for your influence. He wants your life to be a witness to the people around you of the transformative work that Jesus has done within you. And because of that, people are constantly looking to you to be an example of who Jesus is and how he changes lives. As a Christian, your life is always on display. And oftentimes your influence will be the only impression that people receive of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So take some time, think about your circle of influence, and as you walk through the scriptures, remember, your influence should reflect Jesus to the world around you. I'm praying for your small groups, and I'll see you in person next week.